All right, so we've talked about ATC, we've talked about thinking traps, we've talked about detect icebergs, and now we're going to talk about problem solving. So please make sure you're on this slide, problem solving. And on this slide, just go ahead and write problem understanding. Problem understanding. Because as we go through this, you'll see that what we're going to emphasize in our problem solving skill in MRT is not the solution side, it's really the understanding. What we know to be true is that really most of the battle in being an effective problem solver is first actually understanding what the problem is and what caused the problem. So we're going to really focus on making sure we're accurate in understanding what caused the problem. All right, this problem solving skill is going to build mental agility. You'll see as your MRT teaches you the 6-step model that we use in problem solving, that this builds mental agility. This skill helps you to see things from multiple perspectives. So it's going to hit hard mental agility. And what we know to be true about effective problem solvers, one thing they're really effective at is understanding what caused this problem. And in fact, they understand the many factors that cause the problem before, emphasis on the word before they head off to solve it. First, you got to understand what are all the factors that cause the problem that I'm confronting. And so to be effective at understanding all of the factors that cause the problem that you're confronting, you got to get outside old habits of thinking. Habits of thinking that are biasing you in your ability to see the problem accurately. So what is a skill that we learned in MRT that makes it so that you miss critical information? What do we talk about that causes you to miss critical information?
Thinking traps?
Absolutely. So thinking traps cause you to see something, but to miss all the other stuff. And so you'll see in this 6-step model problem solving that there's going to be a focus on making sure you're not stuck in thinking traps that are biasing your understanding of the problem. And so we're going to really make sure that before you go to the step of, okay, now what do I do about it? How can I fix this problem? You've gathered all the critical information about what caused the problem. You're seeing it accurately. In fact, go ahead and scribble the word accuracy, because the emphasis in this approach to problem solving is accuracy, accuracy, accuracy. Now, your MRT is going to teach you the 6-step model. And frankly, the 6 steps aren't that hard. But before we can get to those 6 steps, we have to talk about something called the confirmation bias. The reason we got to talk about the confirmation bias, and I'm going to explain what it is in just a sec, is that the confirmation bias, and everybody in this room has a confirmation bias, the confirmation bias makes it so that we can't see things accurately. And so if the goal of this model is to see problems accurately so that you can go ahead and fix them, solve the problem, then before we even tell you the 6 steps, we got to tackle this concept called the confirmation bias. So what is it? Well, the confirmation bias causes us to notice, to remember, and to weight. And by weight, I mean kind of to value. To notice, to remember, and weight evidence out there in the world that supports our thought or belief. So if I have a thought or a belief about what caused the problem, the confirmation bias is going to make it so that I notice all the evidence that says, yep, Karen, you're seeing it accurately. And I'm going to remember all the evidence that said, yep, Karen, you are seeing this accurately. And I'm going to weight or value the evidence that says, yep, Karen, you are spot on. You are seeing this accurately. All of that is going to stick to me like Velcro. It's just going to stick. And the confirmation bias not only causes us to notice, remember, and weight the evidence that says, yep, you are seeing this accurately. Good job. But it also causes us to not notice all of the evidence out there that says, no, Karen, you're missing something. That's not accurate. That's not true. I don't notice those pieces of evidence. I don't remember those pieces of evidence. So I don't notice. I don't remember. And I don't value or weight. I don't weight all the evidence out there that says, no, your thought, your belief is not accurate. You're missing something. That just kind of glides off like Teflon. So again, quick review. Confirmation bias. All of us have a confirmation bias. It's just the way our brains work. And the confirmation bias causes us to notice, remember, and weight the evidence out there in the world that says your thought is accurate, your belief is accurate, you are seeing this accurately. All of that sticks. And the confirmation bias causes us not to notice, not to remember, not to weight any evidence out there that says, no, your thought and belief, they're not accurate. You're missing something. It glides right off. So that's the basic concept. And it blocks accuracy. Just want to stress that. The reason it's such a problem is because the confirmation bias blocks accuracy. So let's talk a little bit about how this confirmation bias operates. Like, what does it do? How does it cause us to notice, remember, and weight some evidence and not notice, not remember, not weight other evidence? So there's 4 basic ways in which the confirmation bias works. And I'm going to give you an example of each. So let's imagine that I'm, a 12-year-old and my belief is I'm not smart. I'm not smart. So that's my belief. And we're going to see how the confirmation bias makes it really hard for me to change that belief or to be accurate in that belief. So one way that it works is that we're likely to interpret ambiguous or unclear information as supportive of our thought or belief. So we're likely to interpret something that's ambiguous. It could be interpreted in any number of ways. The confirmation bias pushes us to interpret that information as a support of our thought or belief. So if I believe I'm stupid and I go into my class in the morning and the teacher asks me a question and I put my hand up and I answer it, and the teacher says, you got that partially correct. How am I going to hear it? How am I going to hear her words, you got it partially correct?
You got it wrong.
You got it wrong. You got it partially correct is ambiguous. I can interpret that in a couple of different ways, but the confirmation bias is going to make it so that I interpret it as supporting my belief I'm stupid. So does that one make sense? All right, let's do the next one. We don't actively seek out evidence that counters our thought or belief. So the confirmation bias makes it so that we don't actively look for, is there evidence out there that says I'm not seeing this accurately or that my belief is not accurate? So if I have the belief I'm stupid, do you think I'm going to sign up to take a challenging class? No, right? Because I believe I'm stupid. Why would I put myself in that situation? So if I believe I'm stupid, I don't even put myself in situations where I could disprove it. I don't put my hand up in class very much. I don't take a challenging class. I don't put myself in situations where I can say, hey, look, I'm doing a nice job. Maybe I'm not so dumb after all. That doesn't happen because of the confirmation bias. Does that one make sense? All right. Let's look at the third one. This one's my favorite. It's widely this confirmation bias. We weight evidence for and against our thoughts or beliefs differently. So watch how this one works. So I believe I'm stupid. My second period teacher says to me, you know what, Karen, I just don't think you're at the level that I would expect for someone at your grade. You know, you're just really not where you ought to be. And my fifth period teacher says to me, hey, I just want you to know, Karen, I think you're doing a great job. You know, the way you answer those questions in class, that essay you wrote, that was really, really strong. Great job. So I have two pieces of evidence. The confirmation bias is going to make it so that I weight one more strongly than the other. Which one am I going to weight more strongly?
The negative one.
Yeah. So in my brain, in the privacy of my own mind, what I'm going to say to myself is something like, all right, you know what? That fifth period teacher, she's just nice. She likes everyone. She just says things to cheer kids up. She's just being nice. So what am I doing to her piece of evidence? I'm devaluing it. And then my brain goes on to say, but boy, that other teacher, whew, she's been teaching a long time. She knows where I should be. If she says I'm not where I ought to be, she must be right. So my brain is acting like a scale, and I'm weighting the evidence differently. The evidence that supports my belief I'm stupid, I'm saying that gets a lot of weight. And the evidence that says, no, you're not seeing this right, I devalue it. So I'm giving weight to evidence to fit my belief, and I'm not weighting evidence that says, you're missing something. Does that one make sense? Now think about how often we do that. All right, so let's look at the last one. Once we find evidence that supports our thought or belief, we tend to just stop gathering evidence completely, as if we kind of like shut down the shop for the day. So imagine that, you know, my belief is I'm stupid, and I'm thinking about how the day went. It's the end of the day, and I remember that I forgot my textbook for my English class. Early in the morning, one of my first periods, I forgot my textbook, and that just sticks to me. And I think to myself, see, I'm stupid. I couldn't even bring my textbook to class. And then what does my brain do? I mean, there's lots of classes after English class, first period in the morning. I don't even continue to gather evidence. My brain is just kind of closed down shop for the day. It found one piece of evidence that said, yep, Karen, you're not smart. You weren't prepared. That's proof that you're not smart. And then I stopped checking for more evidence. Shop is closed. So these four processes are how the confirmation bias works. Does that make sense? All right. Now, let me say a little bit more about this confirmation bias, because some of you are thinking, well, why would you do that? It doesn't seem very smart to be so biased in our thinking. There's some things you got to know about this confirmation bias. Number one, it's not intentional. I'm not walking around, you're not, your soldiers are not, your kids are not, walking around all day long going, oh, I see you over there, but I'm just going to pretend I don't. I'm not going to look over there. There's a piece of evidence that says I'm not accurate. We're not intending to be biased in the way we process information. So it's not intentional. And on top of that, it's not even in our awareness. I'm not aware that my brain, you're not aware, your soldiers aren't aware, your family members aren't aware, that our brains are biasing the way we process all the information out there in the world. So because it's not intentional, and because it's not in our awareness, guess what? It's hard to change it. How can you change something that you're not even aware is happening? So part of what we got to do is to teach people, like we are here in this course, to teach people about the confirmation bias. Okay. Now, another important thing about the confirmation bias is the stronger you believe something, the stronger you believe it, the more powerful that confirmation bias is going to be. So the confirmation bias might operate on a thought, a heat-of-the-moment thought. Sure, it might operate on that. But it's really going to operate on something I deeply believe or something I deeply value. Hey, what am I talking about when I say it's something you deeply believe or deeply value? What do we call those things? Icebergs. So if it's a core value or a core belief, you really, really, really believe it, guess what? The confirmation bias is going to be all over that, making it hard for you to change your belief or your value. The more you believe it, the stronger that confirmation bias is going to be. Okay, good. Now, last important part. The confirmation bias operates on negative or counterproductive beliefs. So if I have the belief I'm stupid or I'm not a good leader or I'll never amount to much, confirmation bias is going to make it. So I see all the evidence that says, yep, those things are true. So it operates on negative or counterproductive beliefs, but it also operates on positive beliefs. Like if I have the belief I'm the best leader there ever was, I am the best teacher there was, I am mom of the planet, I'm like mom of the year forever, I am the best wife, mother, whatever, confirmation bias is going to operate on those beliefs as well. Confirmation bias doesn't care what your belief is. It's going to just make it so that it's hard for you to see anything that says your belief is not fully accurate. So whether it's a negative or positive, productive, counterproductive, does not matter. The stronger you believe it, the more that confirmation bias is going to operate. Questions about that? Does that make sense? All right. I'm going to give you another example of kind of how this confirmation bias works. How many of you have children? Let's just say a show of hands. Okay, so a lot of folks in this room have kids. Imagine your daughter comes home from school and says, oh, Mom, Dad, I am such a loser. I am such a loser. And you as the parent say, oh, come on, you're not a loser. What are you talking about? Your daughter might go on to say, oh, I'll tell you what I'm talking about. I had my little plastic tray with my little box of milk, and I was walking to my table to sit down at lunch, and just as I'm sitting down, the girls at the table stand up and walk away. You know, I'm a loser. And, we know what else, Mom, Dad? When I was walking down the hallway, I was walking past this group of kids, and they bust up laughing. They're laughing at me. I'm such a loser. And daughter might go on to say, and you know what? Sue was having that big party. She didn't even invite me. I'm such a loser. And on and on and on your daughter goes with all this evidence that shows what?
She's a loser.
Loser. I mean, I raised me a loser. Now, if you were with your daughter, that day at school, everything she said probably happened. You would see that as she sat down with a little plastic tray and her little box of milk at the table, that the girls at that table did get up and walk away. That was evidence that stuck to her. But what you would see that she didn't see is that there was a group of kids at the other side of the cafeteria that were waving her over. That didn't register. That glided right off. And what you would see is that, as she was walking down the hall, a group of kids was laughing. That stuck to her. But what you would have noticed is that they were laughing well before she even rounded the corner. They weren't laughing at her, but that glided right off. And you would see that, she didn't get invited to Sue's party. Sure, that stuck for her. But what she didn't notice is that a couple kids were talking about going shopping after school, and they asked her to come. And so the problem with the confirmation bias is that for the person who has the belief, all of that evidence makes it so that we think we're accurate even when we're not. So we got to teach people, how do you get around the confirmation bias? How do you get it so that your brain is being more fair, is being a fair judge of the evidence? That's what we got to wrestle with. And so there are a couple of tips that we're going to go over. So one tip is just to write down what your belief or thought is, just to get it out of your head and onto a piece of paper. Why do you think, and we do a lot of that in MRT, a lot of write that down. Why does taking it from your brain, the belief, the thought, and putting it on a piece of paper, I'm a loser, or I'm the best leader there ever was, I'll never amount to much, whatever it is, why does putting it on a piece of paper help start to get around the confirmation bias? What do you think? Turn stamps.
I think it helps us see our thoughts once we put it down on paper, and helps us kind of distance ourselves from our own ways of thinking.
Okay, so that's so good. Putting it on a piece of paper just creates a little space, and your brain gets to go, huh, really? That's what I think? It just creates a little distance so that you're starting to loosen the hold of the confirmation bias. So one tip that you'll see when you get to the problem-solving model, your MRT is going to teach you, is that we're going to have you write it down. Strategy number 1. Strategy number 2, it says to ask fair. Circle the word fair. To ask fair questions to gather the evidence for and against your thought or belief. And that word fair, let's be serious about this. We tend to be very unfair in the questions we ask ourselves. So just imagine that I have the belief I'm not a good teacher, I'm not a good presenter. And I wanted to kind of figure that out for myself. I don't know, am I good, am I not good? What question might I ask myself if I truly believed I'm not a good presenter? What question is the confirmation bias going to throw at me? What do you think? Yeah, Lisa.
How many questions did you answer incorrectly?
Great. Okay. How many questions did I bomb? How many questions did I completely crash and burn on? What's wrong? Let's say that the answer to that question is 7. I tanked on 7 questions. I just bombed those. Is that getting outside the confirmation bias? Why not? Think about it. Why not? Sergeant Phoebe.
It's only part of it. It's focusing on the negative. It's not including how many questions did you get right.
Right. So the problem with the question, how many questions did I bomb? The answer is 7. I have no idea what 7 means. If I was asked 8 questions, maybe I should get another job. But if I was asked 50 questions or 60 questions or 30 questions, well, maybe that ratio is okay. So the confirmation bias, and you can scribble this down, causes us to lead the witness. We ask questions that make it that we're only going to find answers that support the thought or belief. So let's think for a minute about what makes a fair question. So how do you know if the question you're asking has gotten outside the confirmation bias and you're asking a fair question? What do they sound like? Who's got an idea? Yeah.
A data-driven question?
Ooh, that's good. Data-driven questions. X out of Y kind of questions. How many times did I answer the question ineffectively out of how many questions I was asked? So data-driven, X out of Y kind of questions. What else would you say is a way to ask a fair question? Who's got another idea? Yeah.
So you feel like you're getting both sides of the story? You've got evidence on either side?
Great. So if you're asking questions that gives you information on both your thought and the opposite of your thought, or a different perspective. So you're getting some questions that help you to see all the evidence. Good, and you're going to practice it. This is hard. You're going to practice it in your breakout rooms when you get there. And then the last one is to consult with others. Another way to get outside the confirmation bias is to consult with someone else. To consult with someone who doesn't share the same belief that you have. So why, and notice I said to consult with someone who doesn't share the same belief. Why am I stressing that you're consulting with someone who doesn't believe what you believe? Yeah.
If you consult with someone who does share your belief, it just reinforces that belief you already have.
So if I consult with someone who shares the same belief I do, the confirmation bias is going to make it so that that person sees all the same evidence that I see. So if you're going to consult with others, you have to consult with somebody who doesn't have the same belief you have, so that they're able to see evidence that you might have missed because of the confirmation bias. But let's be honest. who do we usually consult with? I mean, seriously, who do we usually consult with?
People like us.
Exactly. We usually consult with the people who share our belief system. I mean, we read the newspapers that have the same sort of political philosophy that we have. We hang out with people. It's not bad. I mean, we hang out with people who have the same beliefs or views that we have. That's fine, except for when you're trying to get outside the confirmation bias. So to consult with others that don't share your beliefs is a risk. You got to put yourself out there to talk with people who don't see the world the same way that you do. All right. Those are the tips for how you get around the confirmation bias. Now, just as a reminder, the reason we're talking about this, before we even get to the 6-step model of problem solving, is that the confirmation bias blocks accuracy. And if the goal is to be able to see the problem accurately, so then you can go and solve it, we could teach you how to problem solve. We could give you 6 steps, 12 steps, 4 steps, and it wouldn't work if we don't include the idea of what a confirmation bias is and strategies for getting around it. It blocks accuracy, so if you need to be accurate, you got to know what the confirmation bias is and how to get around it. Now, your MRTs are going to teach you the 6-step model, but let me pause here and ask for questions. So Cadet Porter, you had a question.
How do you know if you've gotten around the confirmation bias?
Okay, that's a great question. How do you know? I mean, this thing is, remember, we said it's unintentional and it's outside your awareness. So how do I know if I've gotten around it? So one way to know is if you've discovered something new. If you've found some evidence that says, maybe I'm not seeing this completely accurately. Or you've discovered some evidence that says, wow, this might have been a factor. This might have caused the problem. I didn't even consider that before. So if you've learned something new, you've got a good, it's very likely that you've gotten outside the confirmation bias. And I think to Katie's point, if you're finding evidence for and evidence against, if you're working hard to make sure you're getting some evidence that really addresses, yes, that thought might be accurate, but you're also getting some evidence that says, boy, I think we're missing something here. If you got some for and some against, that's a good indicator that you've gotten outside the confirmation bias. What other questions do you have? Yes.
How is the confirmation bias different from the negativity bias?
Ooh, good question. So let's just backtrack for a minute. What is the negativity bias? So we've talked about that a lot in MRT. Somebody give me a nice, crisp definition of the negativity bias. Yeah, Sergeant Trammell.
It just means that we tend to see the negatives all around us and not the positives.
Perfect. So the negativity bias, Sergeant Trammell said, is the tendency to see the negative stuff, to think more about the negative stuff, and not to notice and to think about the positive. So that's a negativity bias. Good. Then the confirmation bias is different. The confirmation bias is the tendency to see kind of what you're looking for your brain to see what it's looking for. So whatever it is you believe, whether your belief is, negative or positive, you're only going to see the evidence that supports that belief. So they're different concepts, both of which are important to know about and get around to enhance resilience. Great. Any other questions? Yeah.
You made a reference to the 6-step model. Do I need to use it if I already know what the cause is?
Ooh, good one. So we're going to teach you a 6-step model of problem solving. And most of the steps in that model are about understanding, really understanding, accurately understanding what caused the problem. And some of you are going to say, God, this is like math class all over again. You're making me show my work. Like, I can spot a problem, I know what caused it, and I want to go right to solution. And all those steps in between you got us doing, you're just slowing me down, lady. Well, what I'm going to suggest is sometimes you might be exactly, thoroughly accurate in understanding what caused the problem. You can spot the cause quickly, and you're ready to go right to problem solving. That's true some of the time. However, some of the time, we go from what's the problem and our quick understanding of what caused it immediately to solutions, to problem solving, when we've missed critical information, when we've missed many of the factors that actually led to this problem. And in those cases, when we're skipping right from our understanding of the problem to the solutions, but we didn't check whether we're being accurate, you're costing yourself. You're costing yourself time because you're off problem solving in that direction when you needed to be going in this direction, and you're costing yourself success. Because if you don't truly know what caused the problem, then you're not going to be effective at problem solving. So sometimes you might be getting it right, that's great, but this is a system to help you make sure you get it right most of the time. Good. All right, so now you're going to hear from your MRTs on what the 6 steps of the problem-solving model are.